You ever see a fight announcement and your brain does that little Windows error sound? Because this one reads like a Photoshop headline from a burner account until you realize it's official. Ronda Rousey is coming back to MMA to fight Gina Carano at 145, 5 rounds. MVP promotion streaming live on Netflix. That's not a rumor. That's a date on the calendar. May 16th at the Intuit Dome. And Netflix is making this their first live MMA broadcast, with MVP running their first pro MMA event on the same night. So they didn't test the waters. They jumped in with 2 of the biggest names women's MMA has ever produced. And let's be honest about the other part nobody wants to say out loud. At their ages, this is probably a one-off. Not a new title run, not a 3-fight deal, not a comeback tour. More like a single night where 2 icons cash in their names and see what's still there. And that fits the era we're in. Combat sports right now is built on moments. Big names, big headlines, big platforms. Jake Paul didn't invent that. He just turned it into a business model. So if you're expecting this to be old school rankings matter energy, you're gonna be disappointed. If you're expecting a spectacle with real stakes, now we're talking. Now, the first thing people are gonna do is argue whether this is real or spectacle. I'm not doing that. It's sanctioned. Unified rules, 4-ounce gloves, 5 fives. That's a real fight. But let's not pretend it's a normal booking either. This is an event, a mainstream swing, the kind built to reach outside the MMA bubble and grab casual fans by the hoodie. And that's why it's interesting. Because this isn't just a comeback. It's 2 different eras of women's MMA colliding in the same cage, with a whole new audience watching live who's never seen either of them fight in real time. And that audience, they're not here for rankings. They're here for names. So let's talk about why this matchup matters and what the glossy promo won't be able to hide. By the way, if you're new here, I'm Reggie Cross. This is Behind the Lines. Let's get into it. First, this fight has been floating around the sport for years. Not in a these two hate each other way, more like an unfinished chapter people kept pointing at. Gina Carano was the first real mainstream face of women's MMA. She didn't just fight, she made people look. She fought in Elite Extreme Combat and Strikeforce, back when the sport still acted like women were a novelty. She was proof women could headline and draw, and even became a meme. See, if you didn't know that was her, now you do. Then Ronda showed up and turned that idea into domination. She didn't just walk through the door, she made the UFC build the whole house around it. And what makes this less random than it sounds is that Ronda has basically kept this matchup alive. She said before there was one person she'd come back for, Gina. Not because of beef, because of respect. Like, you open this lane and I'm not pretending I don't know it. And another thing, this is the fight that never happened.
Well, there was a potential comeback fight with Ronda.
Yeah.
How serious was that?
It was very serious.
The one fans argued about for years and then eventually stopped asking for because time did what it does. People aren't crazy when they say this should have happened a long time ago. The matchup got floated, teased, talked about, and it never made it across the finish line. That's the sport sometimes. Timing, negotiations, politics. The machine decides what's convenient, and the rest becomes folklore. So yeah, this is late. No way around it. But late doesn't mean meaningless. It just changes what you're watching. You're not getting the clean prime versus prime fantasy. You're getting a legacy fight with real consequences, just for different reasons. And that's where it gets interesting. Because now, the first opponent for both of them isn't each other. It's time. Now, let's get into the real questions, starting with Ronda. Because the name Ronda Rousey still carries weight. People remember the armbar era like it was a natural disaster. Fast, violent, over before you even sat down. But the version people remember is tied to a very specific time. Ronda hasn't fought MMA since 2016. That's almost a decade. And she's not coming back off a happy ending. She's coming back to rewrite the last paragraph. And here's what always gets skipped in comeback talk. Training isn't the hard part. The hard part is the first real exchange again. The first clean shot. The first time your body gets reminded this isn't rehearsal. Also, 145 matters. A lot. Ronda built her legend at 135, where she could collapse distance fast and turn the fight into a clinch problem nobody could solve. At featherweight, bodies are bigger, collisions are heavier, scrambles are stickier. You don't always get the same snap on entries, and you don't always get the same momentum when you're chaining attacks. So the question isn't, can she still fight? The real question is, can she still impose her kind of fight on someone who isn't going to freeze just because the name is Ronda Rousey? Because if she can, this could get familiar fast. And if she can't, then we're watching a different sport than the one she left. Now Gina. And Gina is a different kind of comeback story. From a pure MMA standpoint, she hasn't fought since 2009. 17 years. That's not ring rust. That's a whole new life. So the obvious question is timing, reflexes, comfort under real pressure. People will post bag work and mitt clips like it answers anything. It doesn't. It just means you can look sharp when nobody is trying to take something from you. The thing about a long layoff is, it's not the technique that disappears first. It's the feel, distance, reaction. The way chaos speeds up when it's real. The way you have to make decisions in half seconds and live with them immediately. And Gina isn't coming into this quietly either. She's been a public lightning rod for years. That part is going to follow her into fight week, and it's going to split the coverage in a way that has nothing to do with head movement, which again, helps explain why Netflix chose this as their first live MMA event. This matchup doesn't just pull MMA fans, it pulls everybody else. Old Strikeforce nostalgia, UFC fans who remember the Ronda era like it was a movie, WWE fans, mainstream action movie fans, and the Jake Paul orbit, which is basically a magnet for attention and arguments. That's a lot of eyeballs, and it's a lot of pressure. So how does this fight actually play out? I'm not doing the fake certainty thing, too many variables, but the win conditions are clear. Ronda's path is classic Ronda. Close space, clinch, trip, control, and get to the finish before Gina settles in. If Ronda gets her hands on her early and the grappling is real, the fight can turn into one long oh no moment. Gina's path is also clear. Keep it standing, punish entries, make Ronda pay for every step forward, especially at 145 over 5 rounds. The longer this stays upright, the more it becomes a timing fight. The more it becomes about who still has that live fire comfort. And that matters most here. Not power, not hype, comfort. Who looks comfortable being uncomfortable? Comebacks aren't about whether you can still throw a punch in training. They're about whether you can still make decisions under pressure when your lungs are on fire and somebody is in your face with bad intentions. And the buildup is going to be half the show. That March 5th kickoff press conference, that's when this becomes real to the world. That's when the tone gets set. That's when you see whether this feels natural or forced. You're going to get highlight reels. You're going to get people rewriting history. You're going to get endless who paved the way arguments. Then the cage door shuts and none of that matters. Because once it starts, it's not about eras. It's not about speeches. It's about who can take control of the moment first. So here's where I land on it. This fight is a stress test for Ronda's legacy, for Gina's final fighting moment, for Netflix stepping into MMA in a big way, and honestly, for the whole idea that women's MMA can still create a mainstream super event moment that hits the way the early Ronda days did. I'll leave my pick on the table. I do think Ronda has enough left to win the fight. Gina has been out of action for so long, We have no idea what version of her we will see. It has been a long, long time since we have seen her in fighting shape. To come back after that long against a grappler of Ronda's skill, I think the path to victory is narrower for Gina than it is for Ronda. So my pick, Ronda by submission. Think what you want about her, but she is an Olympic medalist in judo, and her arm bars are legit nasty. She will be fine if she can get it to the ground and not try and box Gina. Ronda's boxing has always been, well, terrible, let's be honest. And I'll end it on the only question that really counts. When the bell rings, are we watching a celebration of two eras? Or are we about to be reminded that time is the one opponent nobody ever truly trains for? I'm Reggie Cross for Behind the Lines. If you're feeling the vibe, hit that subscribe and remember, hype fades, legacy don't. Peace.
745